Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my humble home in Livingston, Montana. Okay, it's storytelling time, so if you don't like my stories, you're very welcome to, get gone. I'm just kidding. I don't care what you do. Okay, this particular incident happened when I was in the service after I got back from Vietnam. Now, some of you may find this funny, some of you may not, but it's probably only people that served in the armed branches of the military that would find this somewhat amusing, this particular story I'm going to tell you. But anyway, when I was one of these characters, when I got back from Vietnam, I had 19 months to go. Yeah, no kidding. 19 months to go, just slightly over a year and a half, and the Army would not let me have an early out, which pissed me off to no end, which made me want to slug every sucker on the face of the planet at that time, and made me all kinds of mad and rebellious and every other thing. Because they had we were doing stupid stateside duty, and everything, and coming out of a war zone back into a civilian Army Boy Scout kind of situation wasn't setting with me none too good, if you know what I mean. But anyway, we all fall out for formation, Monday through Friday, every day of the week. We had formation, I think it was 800 hours, if I remember right. The whole company had to line up, and, you had to report into whoever your lieutenant was, and your cadre, the sergeants above you and all this other stuff. And you were given your orders of the day, and it only usually took about 10 minutes or something, because a lot of times you just end up doing the same old crap over and over and over again. But this one particular day, they said, okay, we see some of you. Now, okay, before I start into that part, I was in the 9th Infantry Division. I went from the Signal Corps into the 9th Infantry Division because that's just the way the military done me. Even though I was a trained signal corpsman, they stuck me in the infantry, to serve out the rest of my time. So these clowns, my cadre says, now, we see that some of you have not had M60. That was a fully automatic belt-fed 308. 308 meaning the caliber. 7.62 millimeter. It's a very standard military round, 308. In fact, I own one in a civilian version. Okay, so they said, now what we're going to do is we're going to fall you out for M60 practice. And I'm going, mother, son of a big, because in Vietnam, I had plenty of time sitting on a 60. I had plenty of trigger time and all this other crap. And there was nothing more that I wanted to do. I did not want to do was go out and play around with a 60. I'd already had enough of that crap when I was over in Vietnam. But orders are orders. I had to do her. All of us had to do it. So we go out there where the M60 range is at, and they got these targets set up. And I have to explain these targets to you. This supposedly funny little story ain't going to be funny. All some of you are not going to find it funny anyway. But it does have a ring of jocularity to it if you'll just listen. Okay. The targets were actually stanchions. That's what I call them. I don't even know if that's the correct words or not. But they were 4x4s that were embedded in the ground, and they basically had, you had one like this and one right in back of it, and then approximately 8 feet over, same thing. One and one. And they were supported in the back with 45-degree pieces of wood that went like this and all that stuff. And when the targets got bad, because believe you me, with a fully automatic 308 that was spitting out 600 rounds a minute, these targets got bad in a pretty quick hurry. And all them targets were was a sheet of, I do believe it was 3/4 inch plywood that they could when the wood got real bad, they could pull it up, because there were slits down the side of those supports that were, they were cemented into the ground, trust me. And all they had to do was take a brand new piece of plywood, slide it back in there, and put their stupid miserable target on there, or whatever have you, and then you could go back off to shooting again. The reason why I'm laughing is because all these years, I've told this story a few times, and a lot of people look at me like, it's a funny about that. Well, if you were in my shoes, it would have, it might, you might be able to ring up a little jocularity here, But so I'm there, and I get up to the place where I'm supposed to be shooting, and we were in the prone position, laying down. That's the whole idea. Mostly that 60 was shot that way, but you could shoot it from the hip. It was light. It was 20 some odd pounds, but you could heft it up, and it was pretty heavy with that belts I laid across there. I laid across that, your breech and your magazine and your loading and all that stuff. That added quite a bit more weight. So you're really hefting up 35 pounds or so, But it had a tripod dingling off the front of it, where you could, just plop it down and plop yourself down and get a pretty good bead on stuff. I really liked that 60. I really did. I wish I had one, but I'd have to go to the black market. Probably cost me $100,000 for a stupid machine gun. They only cost the military probably about $300 or $400 back in them days, I would imagine, But anyway, I get up there to the firing line, and everybody's got to wait till everybody's ready and everything, and the drill sergeant's got everything. Well, they weren't drill sergeants, they were just cadre. They got everybody coordinated, and everybody cut loose for a while, and then they'd stop the fire, and then they'd go examine how well you did and all this other stuff. Okay, now listen to this, man. Prior to me going to this stupid little exercise, man, I had fired thousands of rounds in Vietnam. Thousands. And like I say, I was no stranger to that M60 at all. I could tear that thing apart and put it back together in just minutes and change barrels, and there wasn't a whole lot I didn't know about that M60. That M60 was my best friend in Vietnam, because I knew if I stayed close to her, she was going to take me all the way home, that's exactly what she did. But anyway, I lay down there, and they were given the order to commence firing and all that, and so I'm looking down range, and I ripped off a couple of rounds, because you could let go of the trigger, and it would stop firing. You hit the trigger again, you mash the trigger, and it just boom, 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 like that, There was no in-betweens. So I rip a few rounds down there, and I could clearly see with my naked eye, even though that plywood was approximately 100 yards away, I figured that there was a hole about this big right in the middle where, the other GIs that came before me had shot this target up, and it really should have been changed. See, it was in a state where that piece of plywood should have came out, new piece of plywood put in, and changed. But, you didn't do that in the middle of a firing exercise. You just had to put up with it, So I'm sitting there, this M60 was no piece of armament that you grabbed onto like this. Sometimes I do that. You held it. It had a stock, and you held it like a regular rifle, believe it or not. So, I rip off a few more rounds, and whatnot have you, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this is bullshit. This is nothing but pure BS. This is nothing but a waste of taxpayers' money, waste of good bullets, because all I was doing was shooting thin air. Yeah, how do you like that? Taxpayers shooting thin air. And so anyway, so I don't know what, something just came over me. Normally I would never do anything like this out of fear that there was going to be repercussions, military legal repercussions. But I just said to myself, I don't give a shit. I'm bored, man. I didn't dig this idea of shooting through a hole, shooting at nothing, in other words. So I just took that 60 because I knew how competent I was. I was very competent with the 60. As a matter of fact, I'm considered an expert with the 60, an expert with the M16, and an expert with hand grenades. That's the kind of medals, three of them that I can put on my uniform. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So I took that 60 and I moved over that left stanchion, that left supporting post set up there, and I just right at the base of all that, the concrete and the 4x4s and the supporting 45-degree pieces of wood and all that, and I just blew that left side all cattywampus, where the target's sitting there kind of, making up his mind whether it wanted to fall down or not. And I moved quickly over to the right side, and same thing, boom, 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 right at the base, and just shoring that whole thing off. That whole stanchion side on that right side, shoring it off right at the ground, man. And that piece of plywood just went like that, And I wasn't done, man, because I was starting to have some fun now, And I took my 60 and I just went along that piece of plywood and them stanchions and all that wood that was sticking up. And man, I shredded that wood. I mean, I just shredded. By the time everything was all done and said, I turned that pile of wood into a smaller pile of wood, and there was a berm that was about, I want to say 8 foot tall or something like that. It was pretty tall, because we got these fully automatic big weapons, And I made that whole pile of lumber, that whole target setup, just dance up the hill and dance right over the berm until there was nothing left. There was nothing left. Hardly one little toothpick. Are you hearing me, And all of a sudden, when I got done with all that stuff and I commenced fire, I stopped firing everything, I felt like this on my shoulder, or maybe somebody, one of them officers, tapped me on the head and everything. And the next thing I know, man, I got jerked up to my feet, or helped up to my feet real quick, like, I wasn't being abused or nothing like that. And I got spun around, and I was looking right in the eyes of Brigadier General Fulton. I cannot remember if he was a 2-star general or a 3-star general, but he was helping build up the 9th Infantry. I got stuck with the 9th Infantry because we lost a lot of casualties in Vietnam, and so that division needed to be built back up again. So, like I say, I'm staring right into the watery, bloodshot blue eyes of General Fulton, And in my mind, I go, here I go, I'm furkled, I said. And I thought, because I knew doggone well that being, doing stuff like that, you were destroying government property. That's the way the military always looked at it. If you wrecked a Jeep or something and it wasn't warranted, it wasn't justified, you had to pay for the Jeep. If you wrecked, back in my man's army, if you wrecked equipment, if you wrecked firearms or any of this stuff, unneedlessly, unwarranted, unjustified, you had to pay for it. Either that or court-martial. Anyway, I'm staring at this general going, I'm screwed. Man, they're going to find the shit right out of me. I blew up that whole target. And I'm estimating that the whole thing was probably worth around about $2,000, because, it's a pretty healthy bunch of concrete and 4x4s and every other blasted thing there. Anyway, that's what I was told they were worth, but, I was told that by somebody not very important or high rank or whatever have you. Anyway, this old general's looking right at me and he goes, Troop, he says, where are you coming from? Because we were building up the 9th Infantry and everybody was coming from everywhere. You know what I mean? From different duty stations, from over in Germany, Vietnam, all over the place to build up the 9th. Again, And I looked right at him and I said, sir, my last duty station was Phu Vietnam. And he looked at me and he says, tell me there, son. He says, did you learn to shoot that 60 like that over in Vietnam? And I says, yeah, I shot it like that and then some, And I just cannot believe this. But this goes to show you that some of them generals are, they don't get to be generals because they're pricks. Excuse me the way I put this. But he looked over my captain, and my captain was standing right there, And I know my captain was probably shaking in his boots because he didn't want to look bad in front of that brigadier general, And he looked at that captain of mine. He says, Captain, he says, I've been in this man's army for 31 years or 32 years or whatever have you. And he said, this is the best M60 gunner I've ever seen in my life, because all the while I was destroying that target and making it hop over the hill and everything, they were standing in back of me watching me doing this. I didn't think there was anybody back there, So anyway, the old general he said a few more things to me, but he just went right on down the line inspecting the troops like they do, And so when we got done that day, that captain of mine, he gathered me up and he says, Bourne, he says, got to do something good for you. He says, I'm going to give you a few days off. And so he did that, and he was so happy with it all and everything because he got a little commendation out of the thing or whatever have you, that he gave us a Friday night beer party. They used to do that back in the day, I don't know what they're doing now. They're probably kissing each other. All I know is on my 3 or 4 days off, my special leave that I got, I was, because back in them days, that's what I did, But I thought that was pretty good, I got to destroy some government property and didn't have to pay for it, Okay, that's my story. There's nothing more than that, and everything, but, I was always kind of proud of that, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for visiting me in my home in Livingston, Montana here. We shall see you on down the trail. Take care of yourselves. I mean that. Take care of yourselves. And adios, my friends. And how do I get out of here?